Welcome to Talks with Tot. I'm your host, Tot. All right, you guys, welcome back to Talks with Tot. I'm your host, Tot. Thanks for making it back to episode 2. In episode 1, we had 40 viewers. Woohoo! Thank you to all of you who watched and let me know. I really appreciate you. So I let you know that we're going to talk about construction, and that's where we're going into episode 2. Let's roll in. We need hard hats for this one. So part of my life is construction. I've got 25 years, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got into construction, and that's with Barbie. So yes, back when I was 8 years old, I wanted Malibu Dream House for Barbie, and my parents wouldn't buy it for me. So you know what I did? I built my own. I took chairs, I took anything and everything I could find in my room, I flipped them upside down, and I made my own Malibu Dream House Barbie. And that started me on my trip for construction. I later on, fast forward, went to college at Chico State, and I studied construction management. I got out, I started working for a general contractor in downtown LA. I was building high rises. And my dad loves to remind me my first assignment of work that I was managing was the gym flooring at 1100 Wilshire. And I panicked a little bit. I did. There's a lot of things that you just don't know about when you're running stuff, and it's hard. But if you go from way back then, little old me, to 25 years fast forward, I am now overseeing a $140 million pedestrian bridge at the Sacramento International Airport. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. So I guess now's later on. So what I'm working on right now currently, I like to call it changing the skyline of airports in California. So prior to this job, I'd spent 5 years, and a lot of you guys know this story, but I spent over 10 years at LAX. The last 5 were working on the automated people mover project. And while challenging and extremely technical, I would say, it was an awesome experience. I got a lot of pedestrian building experience. And with 6 bridges, I was the reason for causing traffic over the infamous horseshoe at LAX, erecting steel at night. Worked about 3 years at night doing that. And so now with those qualifications, we are up in Sacramento and we are building another pedestrian walkway for the Sacramento International Airport. What is that? Essentially, if you've been to Sacramento, you know there's a little train. There's 2 of them, and they go back and forth. It's a minute long. When one leaves, the other one comes in, and vice versa. And it takes you from Terminal B over to Concourse B, where you catch your flight and you take off and go away. Sometimes those trains break down, and you can either get stuck in the concourse where you've landed and you want to go get your luggage and get in your car and drive back home if you live in Sacramento, or if you're trying to take off and get to your flight, sometimes you're stuck in the terminal, and that can be a little panicky. So they have decided that they want to build a pedestrian bridge, and that's what I'm up there helping to construct. It's essentially an 18-month-long construction build where we've got deep foundations. We have above-ground columns. We have a building that connects the south walkway and the north walkway. There's an elevation change. So you come out at 40 feet. You go into what we're calling the hub building. You go down the escalators, and you end up about 12 feet over the airfield that takes you into Concourse B. Now, a lot of you guys have asked me, do I have to walk the whole way? No, you have the option. They have those moving walkways is what we call them. So they're going to be moving walkways that'll take you if you don't want to walk the entire way. So let's transition back. I'm going to tell you guys 2 actually fun stories of early on in construction, and one of them I want to talk about is the first promotion. So prior to getting my project engineering, which is your entry level out of college, you're kind of a project engineer, which is no engineering required. It's mostly like paper engineering, RFIs and submittals. And I had had 5 years of experience prior to going out to the general contractor and getting started. So I went to my executive and I said, "Sir, I'd like to be promoted." And he says, "You're not ready to be a superintendent." And I said, "That's correct. I'm not. However, I need some kind of a intermediate landing spot, like an assistant superintendent." And he says, "Tatiana, we don't have that position here." And I said, "I know, let's make it." And he thought for a minute. He was quiet. He came back and he says, "Are you aware that working out in the field, it's dirty? And are you also aware that it's cold and it can be hot and you have to go to the bathroom in a porta potty?" That's one of my favorites. I thought to myself, where do you think I'm going to the bathroom currently? It's in a porta potty. One of the unfortunate parts of construction is it's kind of like camping. You get really good with hand sanitizer and porta potties. No big deal. And he said, "You know what? That's okay. If you're good with that, I'm good with that. Let's do it." And I was promoted to an assistant superintendent. And I remember I went back to the office and I told my peers, and a lot of my peers were guys I went to Chico with. And instead of congratulating me and being excited, I was met with a lot of upset and jealousy. And what I told the guys was, "You know what? It doesn't make any sense for you guys to be upset with me. I just opened the door for us." I said, "Go get your own promotion. Walk down to his office and ask for it." And so they did. And we were all assistant superintendents, and I was an assistant superintendent for 7 years. I watched all of my peers get promoted to superintendent, and 7 years after I had walked through that first door, eventually I was able to make my way to a superintendent, and now I'm a senior superintendent. So that's very exciting. More kind of about those stories later on, but I'm going to go into another story for you, and this is the Tony Gunter story. So fast forward. I'm working at LAX for the first time. I'm working on the new international terminal, also called the Bradley West Gates Project. And this is around 2010. And my boss, Tony, he calls me into the office and he says, "Hey kid, we're going to give you a new assignment." And I said, "Cool, what is it?" And he says, "We're going to have you oversee the installation of all the elevators, escalators, and moving walkways." Wow. And he says, "It's a big task. And if you run into trouble, you call me, okay, kid?" And I thought, all right, I got this. So over the time, I was there for 3 years, and I tried to, of course, handle everything myself. And one day I realized I couldn't, and I needed to call Tony. And I did. And I called Tony on the phone and I said, "Hey, Tony, remember when you told me that if I run into trouble and I need help to go ahead and call you?" And he says, "Yeah, kid, and I didn't mean it," and he hangs up on me. Okay. So after that, I knew I was on my own. I called some friends and had them help me, friends out in the field, and we got it done. But that's kind of the fun of, a lot of times I would get tasks that were given to me in efforts to make me quit. And I always had that little voice inside me that said, "Try again tomorrow. Come back and try again the next day." And I did. And 25 years later, look at me now. So, all right, quickly, we're going to talk about Mercury in retrograde. So we're going to change our hats from construction and we're going to go into astrology. And before you guys start to tune out, which if you've made it this far, I appreciate you. Astrology isn't just reading the horoscope in the newspaper. It's the planets, their alignment in the sky. It's science. And one of the planets is Mercury. And I'm sure you guys have heard about Mercury in retrograde. And basically, what does that mean? Well, Mercury went into retrograde about 2 weeks ago, and it'll be there until April 7th. And here's the 60-second scoop for you on what that means. So Mercury retrograde is essentially kind of the universe hitting shuffle on your life. And a lot of things can happen. The first day of Mercury retrograde, this time around, my boss's phone went dead. He emailed us and said, my phone doesn't work. And I emailed him back and said, welcome to Mercury in retrograde. It can mean flat tires. It can mean your computer program doesn't work. So if in the next 2 weeks you guys find slowdowns or hiccups, just say, must be Mercury in retrograde. It'll get better in 2 weeks, I promise. So that's it for episode 2. Quick for next time, episode 3 is going to be on law enforcement. As you guys know from episode 1, I am a reserve deputy sheriff, so we're going to talk about law enforcement, some things that I don't think you guys all know about that'll help you in your lives if you ever get pulled over. So if you're interested in that, tune in for episode 3 coming next week. Hit the like button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, hard hats. Special thank yous I'd like to put out there to my dad, my brother John too, Lourdes, Brandy, my BJJ professor, and my BJJ girls, Brett, to my mentor, construction-wise, and one of my best friends. This was his first podcast that he ever watched, and I thank you for that. To Kim, my longtime friend and supporter, Diane, my one and only hairdresser. How's my hair look, everybody? Val, thank you for subscribing. I see you, buddy, and I love you. Thank you for the support. To my friends that told me you're weird, but I love it. And to that one friend that probably hit play by accident, I appreciate you too. You guys are all the real MVPs out here believing that I can talk to a camera. So thanks once again for tuning in to Talks with Tot, and I'll see you again next week.